Hello everyone, it's your Peacekeeper, and it's time for the next video in our How to Play series. On the Pan-Asian Destroyer line, this is the Tier 7 Gadjah Mada. And the Gadjah Mada is actually an N-class destroyer, originally built for the Royal Navy, but sold to the Dutch Navy in 1942. She was laid down as the HMS Nampere, but was renamed for the Dutch to Gadjah when she was acquired by the Dutch. She served with the Dutch Navy until 1951, when she was transferred to the Indonesian Navy and renamed into the KRI Gadjah Mada. The N-class destroyer was a modification of the tribal-class destroyers. The ship was actually made smaller and featured one notable design attribute, at least as far as the Royal Navy was concerned. That was a two boiler room layout, meaning that you had two boiler rooms that were laid out right next to each other. And this allowed them to use a single funnel to exhaust all of their exhaust gases, and this improved anti-aircraft firing arcs tremendously, but it also made the ship less survivable because one torpedo hit to the center of the ship disabled all propulsive capabilities, meaning that the ship couldn't move. One other design change from other Royal Navy destroyers, the N-class featured a longitudinal bulkhead-focused construction, that meaning that all of your structural frame members are along the length of the ship as opposed to side to side, which is transverse bulkheads, and that was the transverse bulkhead building was the normal part for ship construction for a very, very long time. And previous classes of destroyers suffered from hull problems where they were frequently, cracking and bending hulls because of the rigidity issues with the hull along the length of the ship. And this was actually designed to fix this. One other important change was the incorporation of a clipper bow up front. Now, for those who don't know, a clipper bow's primary design purpose is when the bow of the ship cuts through the water and plunges down into it, like say you're on a swell and it comes back down. When the water comes up the sides of this, it's designed to direct the water away from the deck so that the foredeck here is much drier than if you had just a conventional straight bow. And there are actually a lot of ships that have clipper bows. It was a very big hydrodynamic change for ships, and it just made the use of the front of the ship much, much, much easier. In terms of service history, there's not really a whole lot about the Gadjah Mada's service history available, but what we do know is that she served in the Indonesian Navy from the 1951 when she was sold to the Indonesian Navy from the Dutch Navy, and she served until 1961 when she was scrapped. During her time in the Indonesian Navy, she served as the flagship of the Navy, and they took great pride in her. But unfortunately, she is not preserved, she is scrapped. In terms of in-game playstyle, Gadjah Mada actually takes us to what I would consider to be the final form of the Pan-Asian Destroyer line. She boasts excellent guns with high rate of fire, good turret traverse, on a maneuverable and stealthy chassis with good torpedoes. Her anti-aircraft is weak, but she isn't the fastest Tier 7 destroyer, but the strengths of her gun and torpedo armament far outweigh the need for anti-aircraft fire. And this ship is really quite strong. I would even say that as far as Tier 7 destroyers is concerned, she's probably one of the easiest to play, with the exception of the fact that the torpedoes can only hit cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers, and can't hit other destroyers. Which means that she's not exactly the strongest cap contester. However, when it comes to burning and destroying enemy battleships, this ship is crazy good at it. And she's not bad at killing cruisers either, as those torpedoes offer very little reaction time. Her overall playstyle mirrors that of high-tier US Navy destroyers, but she has a much stronger offensive armament. As you know, the US Navy destroyers only have 5 guns, the ship has 6. The U.S. Navy doesn't get 6 guns until tier 10, once you start getting from Farragut on. And so the ship is a lot of fun to play. You can use it in similar ways. The only exception, of course, being that initial start of the match, we don't want to go whole hog into a cap without support, because we don't have the ability of the torpedoes to impact the smoke camping game that often comes when that initial destroyer contact devolves into a all-out brawl, if you will. So overall, I like Gadjah Mada. So let's talk about some stats. 14,300 hit points, which is actually higher than Mahan's hit point pool by 200 hit points. Overall, not exactly the most durable ship, but as far as tier 7 destroyers go, pretty much the average. Main armament is 3 dual 220mm guns. They have an 11.9 kilometer range, 5-second reload, 18-second 180-degree turn time, 97-meter dispersion. It has an 8% fire chance, which is pretty good. You start stacking on some of the other flags, you start rapidly approaching 9%, which is very good. 120mm AP does 2100 damage. The HE does 1700 damage. And shell velocity is 808 meters per second, which is pretty good. Torpedo tube. She has 2 quintuple torpedo tubes. They are mounted in the back, similar to... This layout is actually very familiar to gearing players, and will be familiar once you get to Yoyang at tier 10. The torpedoes go 8 kilometers, 61 knot speed, 15,867 damage, 0.8 kilometer detection range, and 108 seconds on the reload. So the reload time is getting up there. You know, you've got almost 2 minutes. Actually, you would have 2 minutes without torpedo armament expertise on the captain. So, the torpedoes do a lot of damage for how stealthy they are. And that's one of the reasons why this ship is so strong. Anti-aircraft defense, 4 twin 20mm Oerlikons, total of 24 DPS at 2 kilometers, and a single twin 40mm gun mount mounted in the middle of the ship for 23 DPS at 3.5 kilometers. Max speed, 36 knots. Again, you have access to speed boost and the speed flag, and those two together will push the ship to just over 40 knots. Turning circle is a very tight 590 meters. Rudder shift time, 3.5 seconds. Detection range by sea, 6.1 kilometers, and detection range by air of 3.3 kilometers. In terms of upgrades, I am running main armaments mod 1 in the first slot for the 20% reduction in the chance of your main battery and torpedo tubes being incapacitated, 50% increase in their hit point pool, and a 20% reduction to the time it takes to repair them. You could also run magazine mod 1 here for the 70% reduction in the chance of your ship's magazine getting detonated. If you're out of det flags, this is a fantastic option for you to take. I don't recommend auxiliary armaments mod 1 because the anti-aircraft suite is basically garbage. In the second slot, I am running propulsion systems mod 1, which is a 20% reduction in the chance of your engine being incapacitated, as well as a 20% reduction in the time it takes to repair your engines. You could also run steering gears mod 1, which is the same thing as propulsion mod 1, but for your steering gears. Either of these two options I think are viable here, just kind of depends on which one you don't like losing. I don't like losing my engines crawling along, at the 20 knot range with last stand. You just don't get away from the enemy fast enough with that, so for me, I personally prefer to not have my engines taken out, which is why I'm running propulsion systems mod 1. In the third slot, I am running aiming systems mod 1 for the 7% reduction in the main battery dispersion, as well as a 20% increase in the speed at which the torpedo tubes traverse. At this tier, there's really not any other reason to run anything else. You don't need faster turrets because the turrets already turn plenty quick, and the AA guns are terrible, so there's no reason to buff them further. In the fourth and final slot, I am running Propulsion Mod 2, which increases the engine power when the ship first starts moving, and takes the time to reach full power down by 50%. So 50% reduction in the time to reach full power while accelerating. And this all happens in that -6 to 6 knot range, which if you're going to spend a lot of time sitting and shooting in smoke, which, surprise, it's the Pan-Asian destroyer line, that this would actually be a fairly good idea to take. That way you can, if torpedoes are coming into the smoke, you can accelerate out of them easily. You could also run steering gears mod 2, however, 3.5 second rudder shift time on a destroyer is actually not bad. I don't think it's really necessary to run this, but that's a 20% reduction in the rudder shift. There is nothing else really to talk about here other than the ship has the standard smoke screen for the Pan-Asian destroyer line, which means the last smoke charge, as soon as it dissipates, you have 10 seconds before your smoke charge comes back up. Of course, you have deep water torpedoes, which can only hit aircraft carriers, battleships, and cruisers, so that is an extra complexity. Speaking of complexities, let's go look at this in a battle video. Alright, so Gadjah Mada has, well, it's like I said, it plays like the high-tier U.S. Navy destroyers do, which means you've got a couple of different ways in which you can take care of your enemies. I suspect the vast majority of your kills and your damage is going to be done sitting in smoke and shooting at the enemy targets. Now, there's some interesting gun angles on this ship, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But one of the important parts about Gadjah Mada is it is a tier 7, which means it will see tier 5s more than it sees tier 9s, which is awesome. Tier 7 is one of the best tiers ever because you get to see a lot of various ships ranging in the lethality scale. The nice part about Gadjah Mada is it does up tier better than some other tier 7 destroyers do because its concealment is quite good even in a tier 9 match. You know, Fletcher, Benson hovering in that 5.8 kilometer range for detection. 6.1 isn't too far off that. Now compare that to like Akatsuki, and you can definitely see the difference. Akatsuki is 6.4 kilometers. That's almost a full kilometer of additional detection. And that's definitely problematic. So the map here is fault line. We are on domination mode, which means we've got some caps to go get. Now, there's only 2 destroyers in this match, and when it comes down to destroyer versus destroyer engagements, Gadjah Mada actually does halfway decent. One thing to remember is that while the gun arcs are really good going forward, they are absolutely terrible going to the rear. Part of this is because the B turret, that's the number 2 turret, cannot traverse back far enough to actually successfully engage ships over the shoulder. It ends basically a little beyond the 3 o'clock position. It's about the 4:30, maybe 5 o'clock is being generous. It's between the 4 and 4:30 position that it will no longer traverse rearward. Of course, the rear turret is very capable of traversing 360 degrees, which is awesome. And you can see here some of the angles at which we are going to be taking as we jump into the A cap with minimal support, at least to start off. So a little bit of a discussion there in the channel, in the chat there about fault line and the C cap. Personally, I hate the C cap on this map. You just end up too far. Oop, we got smoke. You just end up too far away from the the enemy to really be beneficial. You can't effectively support your team. Of course, Akatsuki here is spotting us, so we're gonna go ahead and engage him. You notice we just rolled out of the cap just a little bit. Not enough of an issue here to really matter. Firing at him using the fact that the spotting plane there is the only thing that can spot me, but well, we got a Furutaka back there. Probably gonna have to lay some smoke to get some support up here, so we're gonna kind of loop around here. We've got our speed boost active. You can see, let's see if we can't get the turrets rotated around here. Haven't done it yet. You can see, oop, 2 torpedo hits on the Furutaka. Those are some stealthy torpedoes, so that doesn't surprise me one bit. Up to basically 25,000 damage. And we're going to lay some smoke down for this Miyoko. Letting him know in chat that there's smoke screen there. I really wish, Wargaming, that the F8 key, when you hit it, and you have it hovering over a friendly ship that it would say, it would ping their map and say, hey, I'm setting a smoke screen, or have the ability to say, hey, I'm setting a smoke screen. So Furutaka here, look at these gun angles. Pretty good gun angles, not gonna lie. And denied the kill. Well, that's perfectly acceptable. We can deal with that. We are no longer detected. Our shells just seem to break there, and I think a large part of that is because we only have 120mm guns, and so their HE pen is really not very good. So there's the Akatsuki. Shooting at her, but not doing a very good job, mind you. Okay, so there we finally got some hits in there and did some more damage. New Mexico is shooting at me, and... whoo! Ouchies, that could have hurt. We got some torpedoes out on him, hoping that we can continue to engage Akatsuki here. And going to use the... ooh, there's another ship back there. Well, maybe not. I guess there's 3 torpedoes spreads. He stacked them wide, which doesn't help his situation any. And so as we continue to go this way, I'm trying to get to this island to really dissuade further engagements by that New Mexico. And we're going to sit here in pretty good company, and yeah, we're going to get some hits on this New Mexico. Probably more than a couple. There's 3, 4 hits. 67,000 damage. Those 0.8 kilometer torpedoes, if you can place them effectively on the map, like in that case I was able to, you're going to do quite a lot of damage with them. You have such good concealment on them, and they do decent damage. Now New Mexico has one of the highest torpedo defense system ratings in the game, hovering like 47%, I think. And so I'm really not surprised by the fact that we didn't outright kill him with 4 torpedoes. Plus, they're only 15,000 damage torpedoes, because balance. Something that I wish some Japanese destroyer captains would understand. So not really doing a whole lot of damage with HE here, but, well, trying to get another fire started on him. Not exactly working. But he's definitely going to burn with that fire. Lots of shell shatters here. This might be a ship, if you really... oh, there's an HE. There's HE for you. Getting our fire on him. And come on, give me the kill. Give me the kill. Yeah! Awesome. Up to 71,794 damage, taking advantage of the fact that Japanese destroyers really don't have the ability to contest caps effectively, but being in effect a US destroyer, we definitely do. So from here, we've got options to take. For one, we got 30 seconds until we can get to this King George V and maybe, just maybe, get him some smoke. Don't think that's going to happen. However, there's 2 battleships coming through mid, and a third one not far behind them. So that's a perfect opportunity for the Gadjah Mada to strut her stuff. So that's where we're going to go. I don't think we're going to get to this King George V to lay smoke in time. Nope, down he goes. Well, he managed to get one last salvo off anyway. So we've got Congodes, and we've got a Nelson and a New Mexico. All very valuable targets. All of them within range with the exception of the New Mexico. That's alright though. Maybe we can get just a little bit closer, but no, just doing a quick check here to see kind of what the enemy fleet is doing. Gave myself an out here because my plan is to sit here. You know, we've got plenty of targets that are within gun range, so I really want to sit and I really want to engage some of these ships with my main battery if at all possible. Really, those torpedoes look really good. But, well, alas, we're going to go ahead and we're going to deploy our smoke and we're going to engage. And, ooh, looks like, nope, looks like they are just going to go in front of them. Congo is not slowing down, but not speeding up. And, well, must have slowed down since the time I launched them, but didn't appear to be when I initially launched them. So that's always an issue, but here's an AP for you. Maybe we'll get to see a little bit of that gun arc here. Watch to see when the gun arcs actually fall off. I think we get to see that here. But, you know, 1,300 damage a cycle, not too bad for AP. Launched one salvo of HE and managed to land another fire on this poor Nelson. I don't think he quite anticipated this happening. I also want to get myself into position here to turn and look at this New Mexico, who is exposing himself quite gladly to us. Torpedoes behind us. Okay, so the Nelson is definitely going away. And so now we're going to start looking at engaging this New Mexico, but we got to be careful with the smoke, because we only got about, well, a handful of seconds to really address him. We also don't want to beach ourselves if at all possible. Ooh, 347 damage. There you can see the gun arc on that number 2 turret is not very good. Actually, sorry, that's the number 1 turret. I told you wrong. So it's actually not the B turret, it's the A turret that is causing all the problems. Why? I don't think there's any valid reason why it's not able to work, but it's not, so it is what it is. And there we're being detected by a Kirov. And, oop, ouch. There was some hit point loss. New Mexico looks like he's going to take a torpedo on the bow. You gonna get a second one? No. So that means we're gonna sit here and engage him. He burned his damage control party, so that means any fires that we get here are going to stick. Yeah, it is that A turret that is really bad arcs. And you can see we're deploying the smoke going in reverse. We can exceed the deploy smoke, the deploy time for the smoke going in reverse. Just barely. Whoo! Now we're trying to get fires on the rear portion of his deck. And you can see we're up to 110,000 damage. This is kind of like the perfect storm. You know, we only had 2 destroyers, one of which was destroyed right away. The only one remaining is the Japanese destroyer, which, so long as I've got this island here, I really am not all that worried about. I just don't think he's really going to do much damage very effectively. And there's our second fire on the aft deck of the New Mexico. And hopefully we can get ourselves another kill in here. 1,000 hit points. Ooh, he's repairing. Switching to AP, trying to get a little bit more damage, and just enough, that's all that matters. And down goes that New Mexico. So now we've got a couple of other choices in which we can take. The only remaining battleship on the map right now, enemy battleship on the map right now, is that Lyon, which is the other direction from where I'm currently at. Cap-wise, we're getting our second cap back. We are ahead in points because we have managed to sink almost all their battleships. As you can imagine, this is not going to end well for those poor cruisers that are left. They only have 1 destroyer, which was last seen off in the 1 line on their side of the map. Something which I highly doubt is where he's at currently. Would guess that he is much closer than that currently. So we've got ourselves a York over here. He's within gun range. You know, it's a York. I'm really not all that worried about him. If he does a little bit of damage, he can do some damage. We've got a smoke consumable left if it really comes down to it. But I really think we're going to be able to use our maneuverability to mitigate, well, in that case, eliminate all the damage that we're about to take. Ooh, Lyon. We've got ourselves Algérie. Lyon is running away. That's kind of annoying. 121,668 damage. Still have Akatsuki hiding around somewhere. And all of their cruisers that remain are over at the A cap. What are we going to do about this? We've got a couple of different options that we could take. We could go chase down this Lyon, which is probably the more prudent move, rather than going to duck into the A cap, because we just don't know what is... we just don't know where that Akatsuki is. We don't know what she's capable of doing. There's a lot of unknowns there. And it looks like the Algérie is coming back towards the cap, and we definitely don't want to hang around cruisers, enemy cruisers, very long, because we don't have a huge hit point pool, and unfortunately don't have enough DPM capability outside of just the most ideal situation possible. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the easy route to dealing with the Algérie, and we're going to try and torpedo him. And not only try and torpedo him, but we're going to try and get around on the good side of the A-cap here. Also have no idea where the Akatsuki is, but this Lion is effectively taking himself out of the fight, so there's no reason for me to really spend much time pursuing him other than, well, it would be nice to get the damage, but capping would be a much better use of my time. You can see we got one solo cap. We don't have any cap defends, which is kind of unusual for me and destroyer games, but hey, it is what it is. Now, Algérie is coming around. Yeah, kind of maneuvering pretty aggressively here. Which I don't blame her. I mean, let's face it. Now, torpedoes, I think we'll be able to get some damage off. Deploying our last smoke screen. And, unfortunately, our torpedoes are going to be spotted here as the, scout plane goes right over top of them. So it's time to get our bouncy screen on and get ourselves into gunnery mode. I'm not really anticipating getting any Citadel hits with this, but the soft spaced armor configuration definitely helps. Now, had Algérie been going a little bit slower, we might have been able to get at least one torpedo. They say it was not meant to be. Switching back to HE as the Algérie comes back around. Ooh. Not too many hit points left. Still getting in screen shaking mode as I click aggressively here. And up to 124,000 damage. And this is a tier 7 match. Torpedoes that we knew were coming from Algérie. We're gonna head off and we're actually going to... Oh, come on. 700 hit points left. 300 hit points left. Can we finish him off and secure the kill? Oh, 38 hit points. What? Oh, man. Well, it is what it is. We missed the opportunity with that first misplaced torpedo setup. We really kind of missed the opportunity to really get a huge damage number. We could have nuked Congo off the face of the earth. That would have definitely added to some of the drama of this match. But, hey, it is what it is. Still 125,000 damage and 2 kills is very, 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 very good for a tier 7 destroyer. Nothing to be ashamed about here. And as you can see, Gadjah Mada plays a lot. You saw a lot of smoke play. And we got 7 torpedo hits out of the whole ordeal. And you'll see that at the end of this match, that's actually going to be the bulk of the damage done. Akatsuki at the 134 hit points all the way up in La La Land. Probably going to kill this Algérie if he's not careful. A good Akatsuki player is definitely something to be feared. That ship is way stronger than people give it credit for. Certainly way stronger than the stats on Warships today would indicate. Looks like our Algérie is just going to sit there, which I suppose. Well, and there goes the end of the match, which I think means the Akatsuki died. So we ended the match with 125,168 damage, 2 kills, 1 cap and an assist, 2,093 base XP. No, the Akatsuki survived. 67,000 of our damage was done entirely by torpedoes, just over 21,000 done in fire and flood. So, Gadjah Mada, as you saw, a very fun ship to play, very capable, very good guns, very strong torpedoes. Overall, a fun ship to play and a tier 7 that I will be keeping around. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you for watching.